Morning, Christmas is in the air, and so we say compliments of the season to you, and just why not? This morning, why the world disrespects Africa. At the turn of the 19th century, Africa was referred to rather derisively as the dark continent. Today, 17 years into the 21st century, the darkness, so to speak, hovers more menacingly on a continent that is stupendously blessed by Mother Nature. Former American ambassador to Nigeria, Walter Carrington, echoed this chilling sentiment at a book presentation in Lagos on Monday. This comment has naturally divided opinion. I have two gentlemen to broach the subject, and we'll expand the field. Let me introduce Barrister Monday Onyekachi Ubani. He is the Deputy National, come on now, the second Vice President of the NBA. Come on. Nigerian Bar Association, Nigerian titles. You're welcome.
Thank you, James.
Of course, Bola Oba is a journalist and an entrepreneur. Come on, what's wrong? What's wrong?
I am not a journalist.
But then,
I'm an entrepreneur.
But it's all right. Bola, you don't start that here. You don't start that here. But then he's also a commentator on national affairs. Gentlemen, from Cape to Cairo and from the Bight of Benin to the Horn of Africa, the continent is haunted by despotic rulership. Who knows? Is this why the world continues to neglect Africa? Obani, how do we start?
Well, what you've just said is pregnant with so many meanings, and of course will be subject to so many also interpretations. The continent Africa, if you look at the decolonization process, there were some countries that are not in Africa that all of us were on the same stand, I mean on the same pari passu in terms of development.
Pedestal.
Yeah, pedestal. Countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, and some of the... Singapore, were on the same pedestal as Riley pointed out. But if you look at those countries today, and then look at the continent Africa, you find out that there is a wide disparity. And then where do you locate the problem? And people have said that the issue of leadership. I mean, they had good leaders who have a correct understanding of what leadership is all about. And that's why they have made so much tremendous progress in terms of infrastructural development, human capital development. They've gone so far that it will take us many years for us to catch up with them. And so the issue is issue of leadership. And we really need to take a critical look at this issue of leadership. Why are we so deficient in leadership? While other countries are suffering from natural disasters, we are suffering from leadership disaster, because God has blessed us with virtually everything that we needed on earth, to make progress in terms of natural resources, human resources. We have all that, but we are deficient in leadership. So I think we located our leadership. We supposed to have gone far, but leadership has kept us where we are today.
Well, in America, it is said God is blessing America, but is America blessing God? You can bring it here. The latest is Burundi has taken steps to extend President Nkurunziza's rule. The crisis in the country deepens, and he might be there till 2034.
Just as Rwanda, a neighboring country with cultural affinities, recently did, so that the incumbent who we have been celebrating in the last 10 years for purposeful leadership and the transformation of that society post the carnage and the pogrom that happened there, just like Rwanda has done, just like the president of Democratic Republic of Congo is maneuvering and manipulating now to do. And if you look across Africa, from Central Africa, Gabon, it's called dynastic, Cameroon. I was in
Togo.
I think I just finished secondary school when that guy came in about 36 years or so ago. In Cameroon, Togo has gone dynastic. People were protesting a couple of weeks ago. Let's go to the southern region of Africa. A country freedom was end with the blood of people in South Africa and look at what leadership, especially under the incumbent Zuma, look at the nadir it has taken the country to in terms of corruption and this thing. So, like my colleague has stated, leadership is a major problem across Africa. However, I need to add this. I have discovered that those of us who are members of the middle and the upper middle classes in Africa, especially the classes that are strategic to the development of any society in the world, be it America, be it Germany, be it Japan, we easily point accusing fingers to political leadership in Africa, not also bringing ourselves to account that middle class and upper middle class leadership in Africa too has failed and has failed woefully. Because if you look across the continent, the political leadership is actually populated. The sphere of political leadership is actually populated by the Ubanis, the Balabas, and the Citizen Jones.
Ubani, Walter Carrington,
yes,
a diplomat, seasoned diplomat, says he's been in touch with Africa over 60 years, 65 years, and to boot, he's an in-law. So he says in the speech, Nigeria and Africa in a changing world, there are folks who believe that the West hasn't helped Africa enough, right? Wrong?
Well, you have to be historical. We started from somewhere. They are our colonial masters. And there were things they did, that actually was foundational for our crisis today. You cannot in any way rule out that assertion that most of the problems we're encountering today, the foundation was actually laid by the West, who colonized most of the African countries. You can't rule it out. But we cannot keep on, crying over a spilled milk. I mean, something has happened, and then we now have, leadership that should correct the anomaly that was bequeathed to us by the colonial master, the West. But the problem is that there is connivance between the leadership in Africa, even with the West, to keep on. Keep on keeping the African continent under subjugation, so that we remain under a stunted growth. So there is connivance. It's not as if they come now to come and do it directly, but there is indirect way of interference, and it is with the connivance of our leadership. And so if our leaders have actually discovered that, look, where we are in now is to ensure the development of our continent and the people that are in the continent, and then divest, any relationship that will actually put out in a stunted growth with the Westerners, we would have made so much of progress, So I'm not going to keep on blaming the West, in perpetuity. I will blame the leadership that have taken over now, that have continued now that issue of subjugating the African continent under penury and poverty. Yes.
I do respect my colleague's logic. The only thing I want to slightly disagree with is the use of the word connivance. Connivance would mean a lockstep strategy by the leadership of the West and the treacherous failing leadership of Africa,
or rulership
of Africa, to rob Africa. I don't like the word connivance because I had lived in the West before. At least in every material particular, the United Kingdom is a Western nation, and we have rich history of colonization, and some of the things that he rightly said are the legacy issues that may have trapped us in the circumstances we are in now. So I should know a bit of the West does not necessarily countenance or support the lack of leadership or the failing leadership. Indeed, they would prefer that others is act together. If you really look across the world now, most of the Western jurisdictions, and Barrister Bani should know this better because he's a practicing senior member of the Nigerian bar. If you really look across the world, you will notice that in in the jurisdictions where the law is actually being used to support the need for good governance to be in Africa is actually in most of these Western jurisdictions. Now, the only problem though, and I will come back to his fundamental point, which is right. The only problem though is that I was telling a group of youngsters, and those who bear me out as a practicing journalist, I was telling a group of youngsters that about three and a half decades ago, when I started avidly reading Time magazine and Newsweek magazine, there's a picture that has stuck permanently in my psyche that whenever I see the phenomenal development in China, I'm befuddled to reconcile this phenomenal development with that picture. When Deng Xiaoping, the transformational leader of China, when he started the policy that once you have contributed the defined quota of your, China was then largely agrarian, once you have contributed the defined quota to the national agricultural distinct per family, any excess that you sell, your family can retain and use the money for yourself. And a Chinese family, I will never forget, at about 1984 or 1985, in a Newsweek magazine, they just sold the extra above, and the money they bought a black and white TV. Had been using color TV. Iyeleja, as poor as she was having color TV then in our house in Mushi, and the father, the mother, and two children, they had not started their one-child policy then. They were looking at that TV. Rural, in a very rustic rural environment. That was China about 30-something years ago. And look at the China we are seeing now, the power of political leadership. However, what has taken China to this point? And this is what I was in England a couple of months ago, about 5 months ago, and I was telling some members of the Nigerian diaspora in the fora that I said, you know what? China and India, it was the Chinese diaspora and the Indian diaspora that returned, that engaged with the political leadership to give the miracles we're seeing in China and India now.
All right then, talking about Africa will keep you going and going and going. But let's take this commercial break. We'll return shortly. All right, welcome back. Nigeria and Africa in a changing world. That was the theme of the lecture by former American ambassador to Nigeria, Walter Carrington, and he has given reasons for why the world does not respect Africa. Crazy, crazy, Ubani. If you take your mind to Libya and talk about the so-called slave camps there, and you envision an implosion on the continent that's driving Africans out of their countries.
Yes.
Too late to start again?
No, there's nothing that is too late. In fact, it's even better to be late than never. We really need to sit down and look at the ugly situation that is prevalent in Africans. How do we now reverse this ugly trend? Because to me, it's really an ugly trend. A lot of people are leaving their countries looking for greener pastures abroad as a result of bad leadership, and that is the truth. The economic situation, is driving people out of their countries.
You call it second slavery.
Yes, second slavery. The rate
whatever
of
that means.
Unemployment. This country, of 180 million. How many industries are here to keep people busy? I don't know whether you take a walk, along the road, Oshodi, Ikeja, in the daytime and even in the evenings and all that. I just came back from UK too. I went to Australia. I don't see people on the street in the daytime. I don't.
Especially in winter.
They are busy.
They are busy. You go in the daytime, even during summer, sir, you hardly see people on the street. I keep on wondering, where are the Europeans? Where are the people? In the day, everywhere is quiet. In the daytime, In the evening, even on Sunday is the worst. Saturday and Sunday. So I'm saying that people are busy. But here, you have so many people. And there is not even facility, you know, for walkways. You know, people who walk on the streets, on the road. You know, so
cat pushers.
Yes,
step on the highways.
So I'm saying that we should be worried as leaders, and that's why issue of leadership comes in. What is even the essence of leadership? Leadership is to identify needs, and issue of purpose, you know, for leadership is welfare of the people, to ensure that people are well off.
Create the enabling
environment for people to work. Yeah. And so leaders here, you know, we start with even a flawed electoral system where leadership is imposed. And so when they come in, they don't owe you, and there's no accountability. It's about their personal pocket. It's about how much they can, generate for themselves. You know, that's why now you see, next year now is going to be politics. Politics, and nobody's going to talk about governance. It's how much will we come in and, gather from the system. The only richest persons in Africa, I mean, in Nigeria today, are politicians. Apart from Dangote, there is no person you see today that is in as a wealthy man. You can say he's an entrepreneur. This is his factory. This is what he produces. This is how many people he has employed, except politicians, and those monies are not declared in the first place. So what I'm saying is that we really need to sit down and take a second look at our continent, and then, really define leadership and ensure that we are not lost out completely. Because, my brother, if you go to these European countries and come back to the African continent, I don't know when we will catch up. I don't know whether we'll ever catch up before Jesus comes, The disparity, and it is so wide. It's so wide.
Bola, and he says, go abroad, you hardly find people on the streets. Here, not just on the streets, people are at churches, at religious centers. Tells you something is wrong. So the gap, how do you bridge the gap between, potential and fulfillment?
I want to comfort Barrister Ubani by letting him know that it is doable if we get it right. I gave you the example of China earlier on.
Are we Chinese?
No. I am one who believes. I am one who believes that the Homo sapien race, there is no superior race. Yeah. There is no superior destiny in the Homo sapien race. Because I studied in England and I was earning better marks than some white boys and white girls. And as I speak to you now, there is no major Western country, especially Anglophone, including countries like Australia and New Zealand, where you don't have Nigerians at the upper echelon of where intellectualism and profound academic credentials puts them. So basically, it's not about the brain, it's not about the color of the skin, it's about when we are at home. Because that Nigerian, look, in America, Nigerians are said to be the most educated immigrant community far and above the Chinese, and we earn twice the average of what average American middle class people earn. So, but the only problem is at home, we allow some cultural baggage, some religious and sectarian sentimentalities, and some other nonsenses to look. The same Nigerian, he just came back traveling. The same set of Nigerians who queued to board a flight in Heathrow Airport, when they get to Muritala, they don't know the meaning of queue anymore. Yeah. So little things like that.
And drop cigarette stubs on the floor.
Who couldn't have tried it? Yeah. He knows that in Singapore he will be whipped, lashed like an errant picking or an errant this for me to speak this. But you know what? I am one who is now evangelizing. In fact, I just started a project. And some of my friends abroad were so enthralled with the success of translating the vision that I told them in Europe about. They were so enthralled that somebody flew in from America with about 20 computers. You know what? To bless the project. We must put our hands. I hate people who go to TV stations to just go and speak grammar, leadership, rulership. I know what he's doing. I know how he sacrifices his professional gifting and is an intellectual persona to make a change in this society, even at the risk of his life. And some of us who are entrepreneurs, we must not only blow grammar, do something. I started a vocational training school in building and construction. I am not a builder. I am not an engineer. But I could see that any other society have gone to, be it England, be it Germany, be it America, anywhere. Middle-level skilled manpower transform society more under simple leadership. You know what, Bola? This was 5 years ago. And I started hopping from one capital to the other, convincing Nigerian building and construction experts to start the school. We started the school about 4 weeks ago. Today, I just posted something on my Facebook page today. You see those kids working on construction site, being trained to use high-end construction. Listen, you and I, Jones, cannot afford to leave it alone.
Yeah.
To the ruling class.
Government, yeah.
If there is any message I have to send on this program today, you who is at home, thinking that your life is being frustrated by those who constitute the ruling class. And I agree with you, yes, they are much more of a hindrance in Africa, including the civil service. But the much we can do, no barrister. It's been a while I've known Barrister Obani. Did he just get to be the deputy national, this thing of, you know how many people he has defended, pro bono or whatever. So we must do something too. That is leadership. And we are also failing at the level of private sector leadership. What do you expect?
Obani, the Mohammed Ibrahim, is a successful Sudanese businessman. He instituted the Mo Ibrahim Award to incentivize leadership in 2006. Between then and now, the last award was in 2014.
That's right.
Only 5 people have won it, which is saying the deficit is there. So what to do beyond sloganeering on TV or radio?
I completely agree with the submission of Bola about this issue of leadership. It's not only on political leadership, we should be concentrating our attention on. Because leadership is from every sphere, actually. Even home leadership. As a father, I mean
religious leadership.
Religious leadership. Leadership at the private sector is also very key. I have my own role to play. He has, and then you have. So what we do, is a conglomeration of what you now translate into national leadership. So every one of us, has a role to play in making this country a better country. Well, I went to Ghana. I tell you that Ghana is also far ahead of us. I'm just telling you, sir. I just went to Ghana, and from the airport, I saw a different set of people. I saw order.
So it is doable.
It's doable, sir.
Immigration will politely greet you, customs will treat you with respect. No begging, no mendicancy.
I misplaced my $400 in a hotel in Ghana, and I came. The money was given to me completely, so I didn't lose anyone.
I wish you missed it on Lagos Island. No, but it's all right. Let's quickly take Nelson. Is in Edo, calling from Edo. Nelson, good morning, welcome.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Uncle. I love your discussion this morning. My simple contribution is that Africa has really failed, and the African youth does not really believe in Africa. And there is one thing that I also noticed: until we have self-determination in Africa, that is where we can grow. And if you can take a look at students that are writing WAEC, they will write different courses: physics, biology, chemistry, and so on and so forth. Those subjects are written in English. And some of the students will pass most of those subjects, they will fail English. And our university will say that if you don't pass English, you will not get into the university. English is not our mother tongue. How come somebody passed physics that was written in English and failed English? So you can see the mentality, how the white world have so much enslaved us mentally. So you can see that until we have self-determination in Africa, that is where we can grow. We so much rely in the Western world. We even have countries that we can copy from.
Yeah, Nelson.
They say that if you have an elder brother that you can look up to, you will find life very easy.
Yeah, Nelson.
So move on.
Nelson, but
we have America that we can look up to. Let's copy
thank you, Nelson.
nations that are working.
Thank you, Nelson. But let me say, without prejudice to some of the bright brains we have had in Africa, please. We have a preponderance of those brains here. Yeah, so
yes,
we're talking about
somebody more leadership. Nkrumah, is an example of an African leader that made a difference. Tanzanian president, the former Nyerere, was a leader in African continent.
In Walimu.
Yes, thank you, sir. And then Mandela was a leader in Africa. I mean, these are the three key leaders you can look up to. We don't even need to go to Europe and say, let us even look at these people who were leaders in Africa and what they did that made the entire difference, in their own countries, and begin to emulate them. We can start from there. He was saying, let's begin to emulate some people who have done it well. Yeah. We can emulate those people. What did they do? Nyerere, died a poor person. I didn't hear of his amassing so much wealth and properties in France, in UK, and all that. So we can emulate that. That kind of. Then Mandela himself, he had opportunity of extending his tenure and all that. He said no, one tenure, and he left. And then unified South Africa. Right. Today, if you go to South Africa, you cannot even believe that it's an African continent.
Let me quickly take Abdulaziz in Lagos here. Abdulaziz, welcome. Hello, are you? Hassan, rather. Hassan, welcome.
Good morning.
Yes, sir. I greet you.
Good morning, Mr. Oba, and good morning, Mr. Amokachi Ubani.
Onyekachi. Amokachi is the player.
Let us get ourselves straight. You see, leadership is very, very crucial to any development in our society, whether we like it or not. And we need to look at the history. History is not only meant for dumping. History is for review and reuse, and it guides us in making very, very good and nice decisions in our day-to-day affairs. You see, we miss it all in the leadership because the followership look up to the leadership. The leadership has to be patriotic. The leadership must be a pace setter. The leadership must be the subject of flogging people to be on the right path.
Yeah.
We miss it on our leadership in Nigeria. That is why we don't have respect. The whites don't respect us because they left the country. It's very, very unfortunate that this is a country whereby you just have to remember the past for you to be happy. Even the colonial masters perform wonderfully than us. We need to come back. Even when we have the opportunity of having good leaders in place, we go for their heads. And it's very, very unfair. We use sentiment to determine as a precondition for leadership. Yeah. And leadership can come from anywhere.
Okay.
Good morning.
Thank you, Hassan. So this thing is, Bola, it's not an African thing.
Despotism, misgovernance, autocracy is not an African thing. It's a global phenomenon.
But not an excuse.
It's a human being. I think it's just that it is disheartening as an African, more so a black man, to not be able to name one single country on the face of the earth that has been properly ruled by black people and been taken out of the poverty stratum of life anywhere in the world. I don't. We tend to want to give the example of Botswana. I want to give the example of some of the very few Caribbean islands. I almost wanted to call them islets, Bahamas and Botswana. But if you really look at these countries, they are just barely. And you see, and it's unfortunate because Singapore in size may be very far from Nigeria, but the cultural and the ethnic topography is almost very similar. And somebody out of vision, drive, and purposeful leadership.
Sorry, Bola, we were told that Singapore was just like an appendage of Malaysia.
Oh, yes.
And, but it took a leadership.
Even Mahathir, we were grown-up adults when we saw what Mahathir was doing with his prime ministership in Malaysia, how he took them from crass poverty to this thing. And if you want to go to countries as far to the other end as Brazil, there was a time when we knew that you've got caller.
We have a caller. Odili is calling from Gombe. Odili, welcome to Lagos.
Yes. Good morning, Uncle Jones.
I greet you, sir.
Good morning.
Yes, sir. We are on. Let's go.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning to your panelists.
Morning.
Let's go. Time.
You see, my take is the man, the journalist come businessman. The project is hard. The project is hard is what Nigeria needs for now.
If you listen to your voice on the whole back, you won't finish today. Just ignore it.
No.
Go on.
I will finish. What we need is what that man said.
Okay.
We need to do it ourselves. Encourage our youth to learn trade.
Yeah.
That is what builds Europe and America.
That's right.
Let us emphasize certificates and emphasize on technical trade.
Thank you, Odile. But this is not well. Unfortunately, ours has become an overly certificated environment.
But a lot of our youngsters are now left in a state of anomie. We told them to go to school, they went to school. Yeah. We told them to be studious, they were studious. They came out with certificates, they can't get jobs. On my way driving here, a sister of a young architect called me and said, Mr. Gbolaba, I've been following your project. Is there anything you can do for my older brother who is a qualified architect and has not gotten any job since he left school? And I said, you know what, my sister, one, I will reply you because I have this thing not to reply people who call on behalf of somebody. I like to see passion. Anything I'm doing in life, if I don't see passion, I don't engage. Number one. So he must call me himself and convince me that he's passionate to reform. Number two is that what I will suggest to him, I will guarantee him employment in 3 months, and he can work even as far as working outside Nigeria without me dropping him, because I've got orders for people from Nigeria. But I don't want to get involved in taking menial workers to Dubai. I want to get people to Dubai being construction site engineers, working on 30, 40-story buildings because they know what they're doing. And I said, you know what I will promise your brother is that I will train him for something that he may find a bit condescending, but we open the door for him for his architecture certificate to be respected, and that is site engineering training.
Balake must be taken, so you don't take aerophobics there. People who are afraid of heights. It's also at issue here, But then, Ubani, I have here a glossary, if you like, a rundown of sit-tight presidents in Africa for the records. For the records, we start from next door, Cameroon. Okay, Mazi Okorafor is reaching us from Arochukwu. Welcome.
Good morning, our guest. You see, the world respect Africa because European Union, Asia, and Caribbean use our resources and develop their own continent, leaving Africans to suffer today with all sorts of vices. You see that when the late Abiola made all demand, he said reparation, settlement from Asia to Africa. That reparation, we overlooked all those things. Now look at what is happening now. You see the migrants and the mad rush. You ask yourself, why the mad rush to Europe? All these 19th century and 20th century resources from Africa, where they push them down to that place. Now, Africa has been left alone. You ask yourself, when this Mao award, there was no African leader that was giving our this year. I think last year, same thing. Now, when we look at all these scenarios, you start asking yourself, Africa, do we have any hope? We have hope. But the question is, let us remove that scenario, that theory, that fact that everything in Europe is the best is for Africa. That is wrong.
Yeah, thank you.
The best do anything here. It's just that we don't have respect for our people here. What we value on it is that somebody comes back, you come back for employment, you see the employer of this one, you start looking at the one we certificate from outside Nigeria. What type of rubbish is that? That is because we don't value what we have. Because if we value what we have here, we'll not be back.
Thank you, comrade. Thank you, comrade. What more can we say? I mean, coups have become a lot, unattractive. So
technologically obsolete.
Obsolete.
Now technology they make coup. No be say our military no still get the mentality.
That's it. They have because if we go to Zimbabwe, President Robert Mugabe had to go at the time, you know. So, but rather than indulge in coups, they are elongating their stay. I talk about Paul Biya, Cameroon, he's been there since 1982, Idris Deby, 1990, and so many, Eritrea, Joseph Kabila, and so on.
I had thought that the people from Zimbabwe were really enjoying the seat-tightism of Mugabe until he was currently removed, and I saw the ecstasy, I saw the joy, I saw the dancing on the street, I saw people being so happy. You know, they were excited. That tells me that they weren't enjoying it at all.
So why were they not? Why were they not explicit?
That's the point. It was a repression of the military.
Okay.
Yeah, because you see, they say a living dog is better than a dead lion. He who fights and runs away will live to fight another. It's only a living soul that can praise Jehovah. You know, so you have to be careful too, because you need to live. You know, the repression of the military actually made people to be subjugated in Zimbabwe. They were not enjoying the leadership of Mugabe at all, at least going by what we saw after he was removed. But I think that the people must play a more, explicit role in not condoning this issue of, sit-tight leadership. I also believe that the regional bodies must be more, active, proactive, in stopping this nonsense that is going on in African continent.
Like Nigeria helped in the Gambia.
Yeah, look at what we did in, and all that, So we need to, we did that. I think the regional bodies, should not be mounting this issue of sovereignty of state and then allow, bad leadership to be in perpetuity. Honestly.
Let me quickly take George is waiting in Ikeja. George, welcome.
Good morning, Citizen Jones.
I greet you, sir.
Good morning to the panelists.
Morning.
Citizen Jones. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. That statement that the former American ambassador made, I see it as a self-indictment by the West. They were the ones who came here, asked us to abandon our system. They imposed their system of administration on us, which they call democracy. They imposed their religion on us. They imposed their way of life. Africans had a way of life. The traditional system, for example, commands more authority within the Africans than the democracy they imposed on us. The democracy that we are practicing today is producing sick-type looters. They are there. They are welcoming the looted funds. When we ask them to return it, they are giving us conditions. So I do not agree that they are disrespecting us because we are bad.
Okay.
They should even be feeling ashamed for what it cost on us. Yes, I agree that leadership is part of it.
Yeah.
But we missed leadership at the point we were developing on our own, where we had respect for the kind of leadership that evolved within us and brought in their own style.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll leave it there for now.
The only thing that gainsayers the submission of the last caller is that they did the same thing in Malaysia. Malaysia transformed.
Singapore, all of them. India, all of them.
India, they did in Indonesia.
Even America.
Leave that place.
Even America.
Let's go westward. They did in Brazil. They did in Mexico. They did in America.
They colonized America.
And all those ones, all those countries, they beat the negative legacy of colonialism. Indeed, by historical examples, Nigeria's colonialism and largely West African colonialism is far more benign than what prevailed in Indonesia and some of the Latin American countries. There were carnages in those things, and yet those countries transformed it. In today's Nigeria, If any middle-class person is using the example of our colonial past to justify the madness that we are in, that person has not seemed to realize that other people have moved beyond.
That's right.
That is
Obani, this is not to say if the Togolese president, quote, end quote, pilfers, takes money from the public till.
Right.
He should go to Democratic Republic of Congo, or the man from South Africa must come to Egypt. No, no. Keep your people within the confines of your... Maxwell is waiting in Tema, Ghana. Yeah. Maxwell, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Mr. John.
Yes, I greet you.
Good morning, Uncle Bola and Deopane.
Good morning.
The Nigerian brother in Ghana.
Yes, sir. You see, I don't want to share in the blame of the white colonizing Africa. Slave trade, enslavement by the colonial masters, gone long time ago. After the enslavement from the white, it was a black man that enslaved his own people. It is no longer the white. Most of the resources that we're enjoying today, I remember vividly when I was in school, one of the Nigerian presidents, a military head of state, told the whole world that the problem of Nigeria is not money, but how to spend it.
Went to Jamaica, go on. Went to Jamaica and told them that the problem.
All right. So these are some of the things. How are we going to continue to blame the whites for all the problems that we are caught, that is happening to Africa today?
Yeah.
Is it the whites that told Mugabe to stay there for more than 30 something?
No.
Yeah.
I had opportunity to travel to Barbados. Barbados is less than 350,000 people, but their dollar is one US dollar to $2 billion, and they are living fine. They don't produce anything. But coming to Nigeria, we produce so many things, especially, let me say, crude oil, but we cannot satisfy even ordinary electricity. We cannot even provide for our people.
Thank you.
It's a shame, and
it's a crying shame. Bola, and so we are potentially rich. You know, Nigeria is said to be a potentially great country, but realizing the full potential is a problem. Goes back to leadership. But he has said, don't blame the white man. How do you reconcile that
Master Abani actually did a good job in his prologue. We cannot totally leave them out. We are not here saying that we don't have legacy issues. There are legacy issues. But we are daily complicating the problem as a result of the failure of leadership. He properly identified political, and I also dovetailed him by saying, Barrister, don't forget this additional point, which is private sector, you and I leadership. Jones, you know how many people, since we don't come now, when they were attending to you, Oga, that is leadership now. I told you that on driving here, somebody was calling me on behalf of his unemployed architect brother, that he knows I have this building and construction training package, and that those who are enrolled in it, 99%, because they cannot afford it, 99% of my enrollees, I gave scholarship. But you know what? Somebody then asked me, but I was in it for you. And I said, you know what? I'm a businessman. I'm giving them scholarship, even if it's just 5% of the class that is good. If I take them to the market where they are high earner and they earn in dollars and they are very happy and the members of the family are happy, I am also earning in dollars. So all the money, all the free scholarship where I give the class, I have earned it in about, say, 5% of the class. Look, I'm a businessman. I'm not an altruist. But you know what? We also in the private sector must be creative thinkers with a view to adding value to our society and earning sustainable profit. Dignified and sustainable profit. Look, people, we say trafficking. People traffic fellow Nigerians to go and do a shower in Italy. People traffic fellow Nigerians to go and do house helps in the Middle East. But I want to traffic Nigerians and traffic them so that they will be respected engineers, they will be respected builders, artisans in major construction sites across the world. I am a trafficker, but my own this thing you will respect, because when you get to where, look, I have a friend, Ugochukwu Nto is a partner in that project. Ugochukwu Nto was one of the engineers, born in Kano by Abian parents, went to Federal University of Technology, Mina. Ugochukwu Nto was one of the engineers that built Dubai International Airport where people land. The guy actually was the one that maintained it as the chief maintenance engineer for 6 years. Ugo today just delivered 3 independent power projects that members of the Dubai royal family came to open in Dubai, and this company just got another $40 million each. So, Nigeria in Dubai. Unexpected. Instead of being somebody that will be abused in the household as house help, members of Dubai royal family are holding his hand to commission his projects.
So you see, Nigeria remains an asset.
Yeah, a very big one.
But let's quickly take Femi waiting in Surulere. How are you, Femi?
Hello, good morning to every one of you.
Welcome, yeah.
Yeah, what I want to say is that we always talk about the failure of the leadership. But in my own view, it's the failure of the followership. The failure of the followership is what we are having in Nigeria. If you look at it, Jubril, that man in the House of Reps, he told us this is how they steal money. He was expelled. Nobody talked anything.
Jubril, yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
And everybody kept quiet. So if the followership are not vibrant, in Africa, the major problem we're having is not the leadership. If we are vibrant enough to bring them to order, things will be all right.
Yeah, I agree.
Most of the problem we are having in the country, from any sector, health to anything, is due to corruption. And most of these people who stands up, when the followership cannot insist that they should be, Jubril now is left with his own problem.
He's carrying his cross, my brother. Thank you. Carrying his cross, and not untypically, you know, because is it docility?
Yeah, Jones, everything rises and falls with leadership. It's very important we realize that, but we also must ensure that the followers participate in the entire process and hold the leaders accountable. That is how I see other countries that are functional.
Sorry, Bani, go back. Don't dismiss totally what he just said. I mean, he mentioned Osman Jibril.
Yeah,
look, this is how they share the Commonwealth.
Can I tell you?
Nothing has happened.
Jibril's matter could have been sorted out by the executive. That's leadership. You came.
The followership.
Yes, I'm coming now.
Okay.
He raised it at the house.
Okay.
The leaders at the executive would have said, "Look, this man's issue. There must be a thorough investigation, and there must be prosecution. Leadership is very key." I also believe in
active. They are members of the
they are members of the same party. The man has raised the issue, and this is a government that came, on the issue we are going to fight corruption, and somebody has raised the issue of corruption against what is going on in the house. And so what did we do? We all left it like that, and it's leaders. So leaders are key, very important, but we must also have active participation of the people and followers who must hold leaders accountable, and that's why we encourage civil society that is very active, journalists like you. Journalists have a role to play, the civil society. Any country today that you see is working, so go and watch the civil society, the journalist sector, the journalist sector, and the people themselves. They are all an up and down.
Yeah, but in Nigeria, not all civil society groups can you trust.
Whatever, even the one that you can trust. Let's work with those we can trust. I was in the House. I was in the Senate 3 days ago. They invited me, a committee. I wrote a petition against the police, and I went there. I must give it to them. The committee is doing a very good job. The Senate Committee on Privileges and Ethics, headed by, this guy they are doing well, sir. People complain and people, let me tell Nigerians that you can bring issues that has to do with government and even individuals to the Senate. There are committees that handles that. I didn't know that there is such a committee, and they're doing a good job. And right there, they told the Nigerian police over my client's matter that is a court action and we got judgment, go and implement it. And we take nothing less than that. So I think issue of leadership is very important. But the followers must be active. They must know what is going on in governance and then hold the people accountable. I believe that is what makes society to be functional.
Obanik Bola, I've heard him say it more than once. In England, I had to read law.
Yes.
I don't know why he left it.
I was not as brilliant as you guys.
I hear you.
And money don't enter my hand. Mushy boy, every opportunity I won't grab. So I was juggling.
But so what am I saying? Rule of law. Yeah. I hear it is one of the things that will enhance democracy.
The chief asset of United Kingdom today. Indeed, most respectable societies where you see sustainable prosperity, the chief asset is respect for the rule of law. Barrister Abani, I was telling a friend who just flew in from America.
You are closing.
If I'm closing, let me use this opportunity to encourage young Nigerians. You have gone to school. Your certificate and the body of knowledge you have acquired during education is very useful. Don't be disillusioned. The only thing you have to apply your education to now is to contemporize your body of knowledge with a relevant skills. In Lagos, I know that the Lagos state government is promoting Code Lagos, ability to write codes. They are looking for people who can write codes across the world. You can even be staying. All
right, Bola, you're taking too long. 30 seconds.
Nigeria of my dream is realizable. Good leadership that does not in any way emphasize tribalism and religious differences, that takes everyone, along. Even the Singapore you mentioned, they have religious differences, but you wouldn't even know. I'm telling you, and they are together. So it's realizable.
Okay, then we must go, but let's drop this as a last line. Dreaming is good, but you are asked to wake up after dreaming
and walk
the
walk
dream.
into reality.
Okay, then we wish you well. Christmas in the air. Stay on the right side of the law. We'll be here on Monday. Bye bye now.